Today on Ministry Monday, I am speaking to Kate Basi and Jaime Cortez. Hi, Kate and Jaime. How are you today?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm
Great.
well. I'm well. Thank you so much for chatting with us on Ministry Monday today.
It's our
Thanks for having
pleasure.
us.
So today we're chatting because we are going to be talking about the Liturgical Composers Forum session that's going to be happening at NPM's convention this summer. But before we do, I would love to hear a little bit of both of your backgrounds into how you actually started in composing, if you don't mind me asking.
Ladies first. So, Katie.
Well, I was like, wow, I was not prepared for that question. But I guess what came to mind is that I had two tape recorders when I was a kid, and I came up with these songs. And I would like sing, I would like play a thing into the one tape recorder, and then I would play it back, and I would and use a different tape recorder to sing onto it. Like I was trying to do the whole music studio thing. I probably still have that lying around somewhere, but they were, things I would never want to show to anyone. But that's probably where I got started. I do know that I sent my first submission to a liturgical publisher when I was in grad school in northern Iowa. I remember the day I walked to the post office and sent it, and that was in 1997. And I did not get my first acceptance until 2005 when I was nursing my first child, and the email came in, and I started screaming and scared him half to death.
Wow.
Well, funny enough, I remember doing the same thing as Kate. Tape recorders and being able to grab a second tape recorder and playing things and then trying to dub yourself into it. That was a fascinating process. And loved it. I love recording now to this day, and so that was, when I was in probably early high school, and loved it. But also for me, I have been a musician almost my entire life. I started playing instruments fairly young, and developing them slowly by ear, and just until sometime later in my teens, it's getting a little bit more formal training. But really, my parents are not musicians. They really are lovers of the arts, but they couldn't recognize early enough to say, wow, he needs lessons right now. So, I was already in my teenage years when I started getting formal training. But in there, and then going to college, starting to study engineering, and then realizing my love and my passion is music. So switching majors in those days was a big deal for, my mom and dad. I was trying, I want to be a musician. And so, but what I remember the most is, I could play guitar very well. So I entered the school as a guitarist, but as I went along in the curriculum, I could see that, how am I going to make a living as a guitar player? I need to have better skills and more, wider skills. So I switched to music composition, and I started understanding a little bit more about how the structure of music and how songs are placed in even classical and pop and all that. So that gave me the skills also to arrange for different instruments. And I started slowly picking a little bit of ideas. I remember starting in church with just designing the refrain of the song, just a little bit at a time, and slowly going into deeper songs. And one day, NPM, had a convention in Phoenix, and they said, "Hey, we know that you can write music and you speak Spanish, and we're going to have a day that's going to be geared toward the Hispanic community of Phoenix. And so, write us something in English and in Spanish. We need something for morning prayer." And I was like, "Well, I wouldn't, okay, I will." And so I wrote them the Canticle of Zachary in bilingual form, and there was also one other psalm. I want to say Psalm 150. I can't remember now, but those two pieces of music made a big difference because nobody knew how to do it. Nobody could sing it. So they said, "Well, you're going to have to come up and sing them." And I was cantering in the morning prayer. I remember Gary Daigle was the pianist, and he was very, very kind to me and said, "Don't worry, man. I'll accompany you, and I'll cue you when to come in and all that." So he was wonderful. At the end of that, there was a person from OCP in the back. Her name is Marie Philippi. And so she came over and said, "Hey, we are interested in that kind of music, and we need music in English and Spanish. Here's my card. Send us everything you have." And I was like, "Everything I have?" That was it. So anyways, I kid, I send them a couple of things, and then little by little I started. This is like 1990 or 91 was when that convention was in Phoenix. It was a regional one. By 92, I had written Rain Down, and what happened after that. So, the floods open and roll. It was
Yeah,
great.
it's
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. It's similar. And you know what? Another funny thing, not, it's a fun fact actually, is that Kate and I met that way. Kate and I met because of songwriting for the church.
And not only because of songwriting for the church, but because of one of these events that we're going to have this year. I think it might have been the first one that they ever did. I'm not entirely sure, but I remember there was a panel across the front. I don't remember who all was there, except Jaime was there and Chris Walker was on that panel. And they were all at a table in the front, and they reviewed A Piece of Mine, which still is in use in my parish, but cannot find a home in a publisher. They said things about it that made me feel like I had a future. Let's put it that way. And then Jaime and I started talking afterward, which was
We
really
had
great.
long phone call conversations, long ones about, even nitpicking lines and words. But I remember thinking, this lady is very serious about songwriting. I remember that.
I'm very serious about everything. Come on.
Yeah, I know that. I know that now, but at the time, pre-kids, Kate, and
That was pre-kids. That's right.
yeah, but it was a great, it's a wonderful friendship we've had, and yeah, it's wonderful to see how Kate has blossomed into a great songwriter, and her music is beautiful. I played a couple of her pieces already in church, and also at the Composers Forum gathering that we do in January, and she's on her way to be a rock star. So she's really
You're sweet. You know what struck me about your story, Jaime, is that you were coming into this and Gary Daigle was kind of doing for you what, like, he was, hey, don't worry about this, come in, do this thing. I mean, I feel like that sense of mentorship of people who recognize talent and really put people forward and welcome into the fold is really characteristic of the Liturgical Composers Forum.
absolutely.
I just loved hearing that story.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. Many other composers feel compelled to, when they recognize talents, to go, I was right there where you are right now. I was there. So let me show you this. And have you ever considered this? Have you, I remember walking into Rory Cooney's office saying, OCP is going to publish one of my songs. What do I do now? And he was like, hey, calm down. Here, read this book, And he gave me a couple of really fantastic books to read, Israel's Praise and the performing audience. And they were from the Dutch composers, and there were books that approach and open the eyes of somebody to say, have you considered that this is for a community and a congregation that is going to want to try to sing this? So we have to write music that's accessible for the assembly, and doing things that are so that they can take part in this deeper experience of the liturgy. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard that. It was so fantastic to hear that. So I owe a lot to Gary and to Rory and many others, that have come. Bob Hurd, comes to mind. It has been a wonderful mentor to me also.
You both mentioned the Liturgical Composers Forum, of course. What are both of your respective roles in the Liturgical Composers Forum?
Jaime, you can take this one.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Composers Forum a little bit before we do that. Let's just say the Composers Forum began as a gathering of composers of the Catholic Church of liturgical music. That was a brainchild of Father John Foley, and he felt there was nothing anywhere where we could get together with just the writers of the music, not only to feel the camaraderie between us, but also to grow as crafters of song for the liturgy, but also to see that we know that this is a little bit of a lonely path, and so to see that there were people who with common interest. And I remember that first meeting. It was in 1998, I think. Kate, is that correct? 98, 90? I think
that sounds right, but I don't know because I didn't join until like 2014.
Yeah, I want to say 98, but it could be 99. And it was just the most amazing meeting and people like me, I was just very fresh and young at the time, and so I could see that in the whole room, every person there, I play his song, I play her song, I play their song. It was a wonderful experience, but also it was a great opportunity for growth. There was wonderful presentations with theologians or poets, just wonderful people. So the vision of John Foley, Father John Foley, was really, and it is to today. I wanted to mention that, that the importance of coming together to further the idea of crafting music that it is accessible for the assembly for full active conscious participation in the liturgy. That is the essential thing that that John Foley wanted to keep alive. And to this day, I think Kate can corroborate this, but I think that we're trying to keep that alive still now, years later.
So we meet every January for a week in St. Louis, which I tell everyone that I can go because it's 2 hours away from where I live. And if everything falls apart, I can be home in 2 hours if I really had to. I'm blown away by the number of people who fly in for this and really commit the whole week. So we get together in January, and then there's that if you're going to put together a week-long gathering, that requires somebody to plan it. So there's a steering committee for the Liturgical Composers Forum, and Jaime is our fearless leader of the steering committee right now. So he is sort of the face of Liturgical Composers Forum, and I am kind of like helping him with that, along with the rest of our committee.
Well, fearless leader, I'm not sure, but I'm the chair of the steering committee right now. There's a group of us who get together every month, and actually we get together also with part of the executive board, and all of us are and Kate is part of that steering committee, and she's very active, and she's really does wonderful work in there, as well as every member of that steering committee has wonderful gifts, and I think we work together very well. But our main objective is to keep alive the idea and the dreams of Father John Foley of how do we develop the skill of crafting music that is accessible for the assembly so they can participate. So outside of that, like Kate said, it requires a lot of planning, a lot of organization. So we're also appealing to the gifts of many of the membership to help us put together something that's going to be for the gathering in January. And also, there are other aspects that we're worrying about. We are very careful about listening to our membership and to try to help serve them. What are the things that they would like to see in these gatherings so that they can grow in their craft? How do we, and you'd be amazed of the things that are coming out of there. Not only we want to study things that have to do with, great melodies, structures of songs, certain particular songs for certain rituals, text, but also the development of understanding history of the church, theology, understanding. Right now, we're in a whole kick of, we're seeking some ideas of how to share with one another ideas for mental health. Because it's a tough time right now for everybody, and we're post-COVID. There has been a lot of changes, and so people are still adjusting, and in some points, maybe traumatized for the things that have happened in the climate that we're living in. So we, the steering committee, listen to all the things that the membership give us, and then we try to design and provide some sort of a gathering for the next year that that will be helping them to and to feel attracted to coming in. So it's not an easy task. There's a lot of discussion and a lot of ideas that come in. I think that we work really well to try to put that together. And of course, always thinking in terms of how can we help people write music for the church, new music. One of the things that the steering committee has also created right now is a group of people who we call the associates, people who are not published, because, the part of John Foley's idea was that you needed to be published in order to be a member of this group. But we felt that also in order to encourage him to help others to become published, sometimes that's a difficult door to cross through. And we started bringing in people who we felt that had talent. They had to be vetted by us, by the membership, but they are, we call them associates, and they are allowed to come to this meeting and also benefit from all the things that happen in this gathering in January. And that's also worked really well because we have had some of the associates become published. There's also wonderful collaborations that happen in these gatherings, and sometimes on the spot there, and sometimes, when we leave. Lots of great music for the church has come out of their individual and collaborations. We have new music reviews that we have every gathering, where people just pitch in a song that they are working on, or maybe they have finished and developed, and now they just want some feedback from everybody. Those sessions are always very beneficial, and that kind of brings us to this session that we're going to have in Kansas City in July.
The new music review is probably one of the highlights of the week for people. I mean, there's a lot of highlights of the week, but it's something that people, it's a very, very practical thing. And we can get feedback from a lot of people all at once who are not only other writers, but also people who have children's choirs and who have adult choirs and who have aging choirs or who have, you know, assemblies who are a pain, or the priest who's, you know, who's got opinions that, you know, so we can bring a lot of wisdom to bear on this. And it's something that's been so beneficial to us that we want to offer that again to people who are not members of the forum, which comes back to that whole idea of mentoring the next people to come up. So we're really excited to have this chance to do this. And we're thankful to Raimi Bauer, who is one of our members, who has really been on board with getting us to get this, to make this a reality in Kansas City.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the Liturgical Composers Forum New Music Review, it was a part of NPM conventions in years past, but took a bit of a hiatus during the pandemic. I believe the last one we had was in Raleigh, if that's correct.
That sounds right, because I think that I flew in just in time to rush and get a strawberry basil smoothie something or another, and then go in there and have that with my suitcases right there. That sounds right to me.
I remember that. I remember having my suitcase in there too.
Yeah.
Do you remember having your strawberry basil smoothie as well, Jaime?
Mine did not have basil. I remember that. These, I think that wasn't Raleigh. That's true. I know it took a little bit of a break. You know, it's a little bit difficult to put this together for many reasons. One of them is, it's on Monday, so it's a little early. Some folks cannot come in. It requires a lot of organization before the moment to have people submit their pieces, to go through them, to accept, a certain amount of them and put them together, put a packet together for every person that's going to be arriving there. It's a lot of work and organization ahead of time. So I'm glad that this time, Amanda, you're giving us the chance to put this out there for people so that they can get to know that they have an opportunity. This is a wonderful opportunity for all those who are NPM members. You don't have to be part of the Composers Forum. It's just that this is what we are just providing this as one of the workshops. It's one of our ways that we can contribute to help in the growth of the Catholic Church. And so the Composers Forum are going to come in and sit in a little panel table, and we're going to just listen to what new compositions are out there. So you have the opportunity to, if you're working on something that's for the liturgy, that you clean it up, put it in a score, submit it, and then there's we can have it in this session, and you will be witness to something that's very similar to what we do in the new music reviews and the gatherings in January. There will be some feedback immediately. They will give you pointers on how to present your scores in a way that will help you to execute it in the way that you intended it to be done. And right. And so every time that I've been to the ones in NPM, it's been very beneficial to everybody. So I'm hoping that people can take the opportunity, write their songs, submit them to us, and then we'll have this beautiful session. It's on Monday. So is that July 8th or 7th? I can't remember.
It's July 8th.
July 8th, and I believe it's scheduled for 2:00 in the afternoon.
That's correct.
And so that's for the, you have to plan your, that you're going to have to be there on Monday.
That's right. You got to get in time.
Yeah. And also there are certain deadlines to turn in your piece of music. And I don't remember if maybe Kate has the details of if they go to Remy.
I have them.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Great. I'm so glad you do. Remy must have given you that, right?
See, we are demonstrating now how we lean on the members and not just so that the steering committee cannot do it all. So.
Everybody has their parts. So.
Remy is awesome. She got this information to you. So Amanda, tell us the details.
Okay, so here's what I have for that. So the new music review, and please correct me if any of this is wrong from your guys' perspective, but the new music review is on Monday of convention week. So that's July 8th. That is from 2 to 4, and it is on site at the Sheraton, Kansas City at Crown Center, where the convention is taking place. The important thing to mention, I think, at this point is that like Jaime just said, you do not need to be a member of the Liturgical Composers Forum to submit a piece for consideration. However, you must be a part of the NPM convention as a registrant. You have to be an
Correct.
attendee of the convention.
Correct.
Yes.
And
That
also,
is
not only that, just because you submit does not necessarily mean you will be chosen. You will be notified if you are chosen, and you have to submit your music ahead of time in order to be a part of the new music review. You can't just bring it that day and hand
Right.
it out. You have to
that
submit
is
it in
correct.
advance. Yes.
That
Right. Part of that is that whole planning thing, because someone has to look at the scores in advance and figure out the style and make sure that they can do justice to it. And so our piano players generally who do that work, it's just polite to give it to them in advance.
correct.
Yes. Now, one thing I do want to ask you both: what types of music can be submitted? Does it have to be like a hymn, or can it be any type of music for the liturgy?
We would say really we're aiming for assembly music. So we do sometimes review choral anthems and things like that, but that's not really our focus. Our focus is getting the assembly singing. So that could be hymns, it could be acclamations, it could be psalm settings, whatever the things are that we want our assemblies to sing on Saturday nights, Sunday mornings, and liturgies. Sometimes it's liturgy of the hours music. So just you don't have to take it too narrowly, just assembly music.
Exactly. That's true.
Okay. In terms of the submission process, those who are interested submit electronically, and we'll put that information in the show notes. But I think it's important to mention that the file type for submitting is PDF only. So don't upload a Finale file or a Sibelius file or anything like that. It has to be a PDF of the music, correct?
Thank you
Right.
for remembering that, Amanda. That's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
That's
just because
usually
it's easier to put
yeah,
together.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to put all these together and in some sort of an electronic fashion. So we have electronic packets that for people who use tablets, and then somebody's going to have to copy all this later, and it's much easier to have it all in PDF. So remember, PDF files only.
Yes. And remember that everybody who's doing this is doing this as a volunteer. We're coming in and doing this as a way to give back to what has been given to us. So we want to make it as easy as possible on everyone.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of things like tempo markings, expression dynamics, and things like that, should that be a part of what's submitted as well?
Yes, please.
Every score should have the information necessary for somebody else who's never met you to be able to execute the piece of music you are giving them the way that you want it. So just you have to think in terms of that. What is missing here, or what am I not adding here, so that that won't allow this person to play this the way that I want to. That does happen.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is I always I felt like I never fit in high school, and I felt like I got to studying music in college and I'd found my people. And then I found NPM and I felt like I'd really found my people. And then I found the composers and I was like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. I just didn't know it. These are people in this community who can intuit a heck of a lot about the right way to do music. We might be able to figure out the right tempo, the right style, just by looking at it and hearing it in our heads. But not everyone in the pews and in your parish ministry around the country is going to be able to do that. So you don't want to be leaving information out, because you might end up not happy with the final product.
Exactly.
Oh,
And it
that's
usually comes out, and it ends up being that you haven't given the tempo marking or a certain style, or you have presented it in a way that it's impossible to read. I'm going to add one more thing to that. Make sure that your fonts in your lyrics is big enough for us to read. The default size of the font in Finale and Fidelis and Sibelius is too small. So you have to make it bigger.
This is the point at which my 14-year-old would start talking about old people, but
Right.
Well, it's
Sorry.
more that people are sight reading very quickly. So we'll just say that's the main focus.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Now, when we talk about these pieces too, is the understanding that all of them need to have keyboard accompaniment, or like, would you look at a lead sheet? Like what's that like?
That's a very good question, actually.
I think we would look at a lead sheet. I think our piano players are exceptionally good. We might even have guitar players on site who could do guitar as well. I think that there are some publishers take lead sheets are more friendly toward lead sheets than others. Try giving us a keyboard part if you can, because we can give you pointers on how to make it better. That's making good keyboard parts is a trick sometimes, and we can give pointers on that.
We prefer having a keyboard part in the score, but it's not super required. I mean, we can figure something out. And like Kate said, the pianists that will probably accompany this are all very skilled at reading this and just coming up with something.
Okay. Now, the submissions themselves, the songs, do they have to be unpublished at the time of submission?
Yes.
They have to be
unpublished and unsubmitted is our rule for our own membership, and that's what we'll use. Like once you send it to a publisher, it's in their hands. We want to see it before you send it to the publisher.
That was going to be my other question, is if you're waiting to hear from a publisher, can you also submit it for this? And your point is no.
No, don't do that, because if they take it, they're going to have their own opinions. So that time would be better given to someone who has not submitted yet.
And we're basically preparing you because we have the experience. We have the experience of the glorious feeling of having the publisher accept one of your pieces, but the frequent experience of being rejected by the publishers. And so all of us, all the composers have that. So we are also there to prepare you to present a score in the best way possible for the publisher to look at it and go, oh, this is looking good. So this session will help that a lot.
Important deadline to mention, the deadline to submit is June 1st. I also have down in my notes that it's one submission per composer only. So you can't do 6 different songs for submission. Okay, great. And then you will be notified in advance if you will be chosen. Is there anything else that someone who submits, their piece gets chosen, anything else they need to know before they walk into that room on Monday, July 8th?
Critique is hard. This is your baby.
But it could be ugly.
Come in with an open mind. So I'm also a novelist, as Amanda knows and Jaime knows. And I have often said that the critiques in this group at New Music Review are not nearly as difficult for me as the critiques on my novels are. But maybe I've just had a lot of practice at taking critiques because I've been doing in a group for a long time. It is my experience from 17, 18 years of critique groups is that whatever somebody says, there's generally value to it. It may not be that you have to take their solution, but if they're reacting to something, it's because something doesn't work about it. And so having an open heart and an open mind as you go in to see things through somebody else's eyes, this is a real gift to be able to see it as it is seen by the people who would be choosing it and the people who would be singing it in the pews.
And it's taking us years to get comfortable with the exercise of critiquing each other's pieces of music. It's not an easy experience. Through the years, we've grown a little bit more callous about the feeling, but it's true what Kate said. You don't have to take every advice, but there's something about mentioning something about the piece that forces you at least to go and take a second look.
Yeah.
I will also add this. Regardless of whether your piece gets chosen or not, if you're going to be in the conference and you're going to be present on Monday, come to the session because there's lots to receive, lots of great advice that you will hear that may apply to your particular pieces. So even if your piece is not there chosen, you're going to hear a lot of great advice. So come to the session, be supportive to other writers, and also network. The one thing that's wonderful about the Composers Forum when we meet also is that we, the networking and the friendships that have developed there through the years it's just been priceless. So that can also start in a session in NPM.
All of that. Second everything.
That was going to be my final question is, can someone who didn't submit a piece or submitted a piece and it wasn't chosen, can pretty much anyone involved with the convention still sit in on the new music review?
Absolutely. I think that would actually be a really valuable thing to do, even if you didn't feel like you were ready to submit, or maybe you've got a piece that you just sent to a publisher so you can't submit, but you want to be a composer and you don't have anything else that's ready. Come on in, because you're going to get wisdom by looking at multiple pieces and hearing the feedback on it. And you'll start to see patterns probably. Also, I don't want to be like we're horrible, hateful people to everyone. We also look for what is good in pieces and compliment it. So let's just be clear about that.
It does happen. It does happen. There's some pieces come in and we are all blown away, so it does happen. Yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any final thoughts, you two?
We look forward to seeing you at NPM.
Yeah, we're glad that NPM is going to happen. That's wonderful. I'm very grateful that I'll be able to be there. That's another thing. And I think that the Composers Forum as a group is looking forward to having this session, to see one another for a little bit, and also to have this session for other people and give them an opportunity to develop their skills as writers of music for the Catholic Church. We're excited about that. So we'll see you in July in Kansas City.
Hey, Jaime, thank you so much for your time today. Not just today, but thank you for your role with Liturgical Composers. Thank you in advance for any help you have for the new music review. I think it's going to be really great. So thank you both for your time today to talk about it.
Thanks for having us on.
Say hello to everybody at NPM.
I will. Thanks.